guys, it's Thorn. So, continuation of my last video. Because when Corvus left, I spent another few minutes like flitting through my phone. It's Friday night, right? What do you do on Friday night? And the other thing about this isn't about online dating specifically. This is more just about like being out in the world generally. The thing that I realized particularly while like looking at the online dating stuff, but then, you know, I'm conscious of it generally from day to day, is how relative experience is, and how, you know, we're so obsessed with how we describe ourselves and the labels we apply to ourselves and whatever, and everything is really, really relative. And it's coming up on OkCupid, because the way OkCupid works is you, like, while you're there, they set it up kind of like some kind of weird trivia game where you answer questions about yourself. And near as I can tell, these questions go on forever. So you can kind of answer whatever you want or not at all. And the questions are categorized by like lifestyle or dating or sex or religion or whatever. And that's how they match you up, like percentage-wise, with other people. So you can answer random questions, or you can answer a bunch of questions within like a particular realm. And when you answer enough questions, it starts applying these categories to your profile. So for example, on my profile, based on how I've answered the like couple dozen questions I've answered, hang on, what the hell am I? I remember that I'm good-natured. I am, what the fuck else am I? Magical is not an option. I'm nerdy. I'm political. I'm adventurous. And my favorite, experienced. I don't know what that means, because in poking around on other profiles, sexually experienced is a different category. So I'm not sure what questions I've been answering that have led to me being experienced. I can remember at least one that was something like, have you ever traveled to a foreign country alone? And like, yeah, a bajillion times, because that's what happens when like your parents are both in the army and like you go to like prep school and everybody thinks that leaving you overseas is a really good way to like make you worldly and cultured or something. So anyway, I think those are the kinds of questions that have led to me being experienced. But as a general rule, I don't answer the ones that have to do with sex, just because like that's really not like the internet's business by and large, or at least not like the mundane like online dating internet's business. Okay. And I really didn't want like certain kinds of people to be able to find me, or certain categories to be applied to me just sort of wantonly. But I do flit through the sex questions, because when you look at somebody else's profile, you can click on that icon and you can see what they've answered in that category. And there are a ton of questions that theoretically are supposed to pertain to kink. And it cracks me the fuck up, because in reading these questions and in seeing reading the profiles of these guys, and it's like, are you kinky? Yes or no, right? And then the dudes will have like sexperienced or whatever on their profiles. But going through some of these questions and like the really narrow conception of like what kink is, or what like sexual experience is, or blah, 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 are just really narrow. So like giving you some examples, I spend a lot of time, obviously, in pagan spaces, okay? And pagans, by and large, have, like, you can generally say about pagan communities that we tend to be on the more open side as far as, like, sexuality. Like, if you want to use the word liberal, like, whatever. Like, we tend to be kind of way to the left when it comes to, like, relationships, sex, whatever. So, like, when I get a question on OkCupid that says something like, have you ever had sex in public, or would you? I'm right away thinking about like pagan festivals where like it's actually not uncommon to see stuff like that, and like what constitutes being in public. Like if I'm in a cabin and like the couple, like a couple of beds down, are having sex at night, like that happens every free spirit. Like that has happened to me at like every festival I've ever been to. Like you can hear it in the tent next to you, or you can hear it in the room next to you at the cabin, a couple times like the bed next to you. And I don't know if it's just that I've been doing this for 100 years, so I just don't give a shit anymore. Or if some people are just really sensitive. I don't know, okay? And I don't care, but it's hard looking at a question like, how do you feel about sex in public, and having to take it out of that realm and put it into like normal people realm, right? Where like clearly these people are talking about like sex in Central Park, or like sex in like a hotel lobby during a wedding reception where you could get caught. Like that's clearly what this question is referring to. But my initial impulse is to think about pagan spaces where it's not uncommon to be around sex, and it's not a big deal, and like who cares? You know, like you're at some Beltane festival somewhere, and like people are going off like 10 feet that way into the bushes or whatever, and like everybody knows and nobody gives a shit because who cares? So like does that make me sexually like more liberated or more experienced or something? I don't know. Just as another example, and I hope this dude just like never finds this video, but whatever. So like I was once messaging with a dude about like dating and relationship stuff, and he made some comment about being into kink, okay? And like so here, like when I think about myself, like you've got to remember I'm hanging out in kink communities because they overlap with pagan spaces. I spent years in like body modification communities. Like I have fucking seen a lot of shit, okay? And regardless of what I've participated in, my idea of what constitutes like pushing the edges of like sexual exploration is like way the fuck out there. So I come home and like I think of myself as generally speaking being pretty vanilla because like whatever, I'm a school teacher who lives with a cat. I'm on OkCupid, for the love of Christ. Like I don't think about it. And it's because I'm hanging out with people, like some of my friends are professional kink educators. I've seen all kinds of shit, okay? Things that make me think about like my own escapades, and I'm just like, oh yeah, like I'm super boring because I'm fucking like hanging out with like Winter and Thista or whatever, okay? Name drop. So, or like going to PantheaCon. Like I've seen all kinds of stuff, okay? Like you can go to PantheaCon and go to like BDSM, like intro rituals, blah, blah, blah. And like, that's the tame stuff, guys. Like anybody can go, okay? And I forget that when I go out into like mundane, normal people land, that's like way the fucking crazy town. So when I say that I'm vanilla, like that actually has no context. So anyway, back to this dude. At one point he's talking about being into kink, and I'm just like, I don't even care. Like, I'm like, okay, that's nice. Like, whatever. And then he starts telling me, and he's like, have you ever dripped hot wax on yourself? And I'm just like that was this guy's idea of like provocative sex, and that's cool, like that's fine. But it was a shock to me to realize that this guy thought he was hardcore. And I've met a lot of guys who like think that they're into some hardcore shit, and I'm just like I'm pretty sure everybody does that thing that you're describing that you think makes you like badass or like scary or something, because they always think that they're scary, right? Like they think that they are like opening you up to like new worlds and new whatever. And you're just like, no, actually, like, I'm pretty sure you got that out of like some Twilight fan fiction, and I just like, it's cool if that's what you're into, but like, I'm not wigged out. Okay, like I've seen what people can do with bugs. Like I'm not wigged out. Okay, so anyway, being on this dating site and like reading these dudes' profiles and some of the stories they tell and the adjectives that they apply to themselves, and like honestly, like it's not that it's a competition or anything. It's just that it's giving me some perspective on my own life and how my paganism and the communities that I'm part of impact my relationship with people outside of those communities. Because what I think of as normal and acceptable and run-of-the-mill and vanilla is way the fuck out there as far as like dude on OkCupid is concerned, right? There's Oliver licking his butt and his little feet. Yeah, so that's been really educational. So thank you for that, OkCupid, because I feel like I'm pretty like middle of the road, generally speaking. And that's not, I'm not even just talking about sex stuff, but like politically, like this is what people mean when they say that they live in a bubble, where like it's totally bizarre to me that like a dude would be like horrified by the idea of like feminism, okay? Or that like I'm surrounded by, like, teaching in the public school system taught me that, like, like, I think about when Trump won the election and, like, all of these stories floating around on Twitter about how everybody was, like, shocked and, like, who are these people voting for Trump? How could this possibly happen? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, dude, like, I live in North Carolina. I know exactly who voted for Trump. Like, I'm surrounded. Like, it is not a mystery to me, like, how Trump won or who voted for him. Like, I'm in North Carolina. Like, of course that's normal. So, like, that's another example of, like, a bubble. Like, how did this happen? But all of my friends are liberal. Well, if you only hang out with liberal people, then, yeah, all of your friends are liberal. So, like, when you only hang out with, like, pagans and kinksters or whatever, then your idea of what vanilla is or what non-magical is, I feel non-magical most of the time. Like, most of my more recent blog posts have been about how, like, God, like, I just don't really feel like ritual. Like, you know, I'm just, like, not, I don't feel, like, magical lately. And, like, I don't know about my relationship with the gods and blah, 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 blah. But me on a bad day, me on a day where I feel like I'm just totally nothing, is still way the fuck in left field as far as everyone else is concerned. Right? Like, so, yeah, like, anyway, that's been a thing that I am appreciating lately. And I love my communities, and I love my friends, and it's just, you know, it's all really, really relative. So maybe think about that the next time you're feeling like, maybe I'm just not very witchy, or maybe I am just boring, or maybe whatever. It really just depends on who you're standing next to. Okay? I feel relatively, like, unremarkable in magical spaces because I'm surrounded by, like, hyper magical people. And I forget, like, how much of a weirdo I am in other spaces, like at family reunions or on OkCupid. So this is going to work out real well, guys. All right, have a good night, for real.